The member for South West Coast.
Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I rise to speak on the Education Training Reform Amendment Protection of School Communities Bill 2021. And the key purpose of this bill is to amend the Education and Training Reform Act to provide orders prohibiting or regulating certain conduct on school premises or school-related places in order to protect members of the school communities from harmful, threatening or abusive behaviour. So basically it's a new law that has come about because of changes that are occurring and the risk that is being put in is occurring in schoolyards that's putting principals and teachers and even the children, I imagine, at risk due to some poor behaviours. Clearly, that's a bill that we would support, given that totally reasonable to expect good behaviour, especially around children in school environments, and so any really poor behaviour does need to be addressed. And you would ask, well, what's wrong with our current laws and why can't we currently deal with this? Well, the only law that is available really to principals is the trespass law, which is only really able to be exercised in the Supreme Court, and that process is not a process that is affordable, let alone probably nimble and flexible enough to address a situation when you've got emotions running high and people acting in a very unreasonable and unsatisfactory manner. So we support the bill. In fact, I think for me, it's an interesting time to think about why are we needing to have these sorts of changes. And, you know, when I became the member for South West Coast, having been a parent of children for many, many years, and having been involved with the school very actively with all four of my children and now my grandson, it surprised me just how much work principals did. So I was actually on school councils, very involved in the Parents and Friends, clearly very active in raising funds and doing all the things that most parents who have children in small communities do, because you have to be able to get the school the best it can be. So first thing I say is, even though I was so very integrally involved in the system for many, many years, I was absolutely very surprised at the extent of the workload of principals. So I went round to all the schools in my electorate, and there are many, and that was one of the things in the first 12 months that really stood out to me, just how hard principals work and how much pressure they're under. So I can understand why they feel they need to be supported, and I'm very comfortable that we do things like this law change. And as I say, over the last 28 years of my experience in the school and education system, going from my son who turns 33 this month to my youngest who's still in school, and my grandson who started school this year, who I have great pleasure in being able to pick up every second Friday and being in the class for a short period of time. And I think that's really important as a parent or grandparent. And I think we should encourage that, and most people do that, and that's really important and really healthy for the school environment to have very active parent involvement, doing reading and whatever else. So whilst we encourage that, what we can't allow is this abhorrent behaviour, and we must put protections in place, and that's what this bill does. But I keep asking myself, why have I noticed such a massive change in the 28 years that I've been involved, that I have seen deterioration in the behaviour of the community of parents, less parents wanting to be actively involved or able to be actively involved in the fundraising activities. And I think to myself, well, it's because of the things that when I was in the Community and Development Committee, we identified and heard from many of the people who came in and talked to us about the different inquiries that we undertook while I was on the committees, and that was that the families are under enormous pressure. So it's great we put this law in place, and I totally agree and support that. But I think we should take a bit of a step back and ask, why is it that families are under so much pressure that they're behaving sometimes so badly. Now, they love their children, they want the best for their children, and yes, they can get emotionally too het up, and that results in this. But what's causing that? And, you know, we can see that extended family has disappeared over the last 40 years. We don't have grandma and grandpa, and we don't have aunts, uncles and cousins, and the kids don't have those mentors that they once had around them. And that's the sort of thing that we saw in the community and family development inquiry committees the committee that I was on where we had inquiries. So, you know, I see programs, organically growing programs in my electorate that are clearly trying to address that. And a few stand out, and some of them are things like Standing Tall. And I really commend the work that Standing Tall does right throughout my region. And I look at Maddie Stewart, who's been the face behind that program, and it gets kids a mentor in their life where someone from the community comes in and once a week for an hour just develops that relationship. It's fantastic. And there are programs like Big Life that Shane Wilson's running, and the hands-on learning programs where there's real, where kids can feel very involved, and these give kids more feeling of valued, because it's just when parents get often very upset because they feel their children aren't getting that support that they need, or that, you know, the system's not working for their child, and they take it out on people like the principals. And, you know, I just see so much good from our principals. I remember going to Hawkesdale College, and Colin Driscoll had just taken a child, he's the principal there, and he'd just taken a child to a dental appointment. A principal taking a child to a dental appointment. Hawkesdale's half an hour from the closest dentist. And he said he had to. The child was in pain and there was no other option. You just couldn't leave the child in pain. So this is the extraordinary lengths that our principals even have to go to. And the changes that we see in the school environment that we wouldn't have had 30, 40 years ago when 30 years ago when I first started as a parent, or during when I was a child. So things have changed, and I think we need to put some funding behind these programs like Standing Tall, like Big Life, like hands-on learning. We've got to keep our kids engaged, keep them feeling valued, and that way, you know, we have a system that actually really is flexible and nimble for all types and styles of learning and capabilities. The Wave School, another amazing program in my part of the world where kids who aren't academically inclined and a little bit disengaged and often come from family environments that are challenging are really given that extra support. You know, we have kids in our society, well, I remember when I started in this role, one of the principals told me there were about 120 kids that weren't in the system, had fallen out of the system and no one knew where they were, around the ages of 12 to 13. And I just think to myself, you know, these are kids. What can we do better? We can't just accept that that's reasonable, that we just give up on a kid. They are children. And I really commend the programs like the Wave School and the re-engaging, what's the one called in Portland, re-engaging disengaged community or something like that, I can't remember, but another really good program in Portland. So whilst I 100% agree we have to put rules and laws like this in place, because we've allowed people to, you know, deteriorate in their getting away with speaking disrespectfully and becoming quite violent even in schoolyards or accident emergencies has been my experience in the past, which never happened a long time ago. But when these people are distressed and at the wit's end or trying to get the best for their child, whilst we must put these in place, we need to think about what or more we can do as a society to also make sure we're embracing all the capabilities that children have. Not everyone's going to be an academic, and just giving academics an opportunity in a classroom is not the only approach. Maybe going back to technical schools, that always worked very, very well for kids. So there's lots of things I think we've done well in the past that we can pick up and do well in the future. And we must always give our children our priority, even though at 4:15 my daughter is currently ringing me now. I'm definitely not going to take that call in the chamber. She's just finished school and ringing her evening call to mum, which is lovely, but no, not right now. But I really do commend this bill. I think we can do so much more for our children. I don't believe we give up on 11-year-olds who have decided the education system doesn't work for them. I think we can be nimble, flexible and lateral, and making sure that every child feels that they are valued is not beyond us as a challenge, and looking for ways to celebrate the strengths of each individual and find things that they are able to contribute to society and feel valued. If we focus and aim on that with every single individual, we will be a much better society for it.